Okay, so you shared some really fascinating and, frankly, quite concerning material with us. What it seems to lay bare is this complex, interconnected web, recent disinformation campaigns, malicious cyber stuff.
Yeah.
And the common thread, it looks like it points back to Russia.
That's right. And this isn't just, theoretical cybersecurity talk. The sources are detailing active efforts.
Active efforts to do what exactly?
To influence what people think. In France, Germany, Italy, Ukraine, even Israel.
Wow.
And alongside that, we're seeing, straight up criminal cyber attacks targeting Ukraine, its allies.
Okay. So what we want to do in this deep dive is basically connect the dots for everyone listening.
Right.
We'll focus on two main areas that jump out.
Yeah.
First, these disinformation campaigns, particularly the ones linked to a group called Doppelgänger.
Doppelgangers, yeah, we've seen them before.
And second, these malicious cyber activities. The names UAC-0050 and UAC-0006 keep popping up there. And the goal is to show how these, they seem like separate things, but how they might actually fit together. Reveal a bigger picture.
Exactly. What's really striking as we look at this is the potential for these two different approaches, manipulating information and launching cyber attacks, to sort of work together.
Working in tandem suggests something bigger.
A much broader, more strategic effort, possibly. So let's start by taking a closer look at the disinformation side. This Doppelgänger group.
Okay, let's unpack Doppelgänger.
Yeah.
The info you sent suggests this campaign. It popped up again on X, Twitter, early January 2025.
It resurfaced them.
Now, Doppelgänger, as you said, not a new name. Meta linked them to Russian companies way back in 2022, right?
That's correct. They identified it as a coordinated operation.
And crucially, this isn't history. These campaigns, they're ongoing.
They're still actively being deployed. That's important to stress.
Okay. The timing of this renewed activity, it seems significant.
It definitely raises some eyebrows. The sources highlight it kicked off during, a really sensitive political time in Europe. Sensitive how?
Well, you had the looming possibility of economic tension, maybe warfare, with a potential new U.S. administration.
Right, after the election.
Plus political turbulence in France, after those snap elections in June 2024. And Germany was gearing up for federal elections in February 25.
So a moment of potential instability.
Exactly. And if you think about that context, Europe trying to stay united on supporting Ukraine,
then the objective of these doppelganger campaigns becomes clearer.
It starts to come into focus, yeah. The analysis suggests it's about stirring up trouble internally within these countries.
To erode support for Ukraine by saying leaders are ignoring problems at home.
That seems to be the apparent aim. Push this narrative. You're focused on Ukraine while things are falling apart here.
Got it. And the methods, how are they doing this?
Well, a key tactic is impersonation. Faking well-known media outlets.
Like who?
We're seeing fake articles designed to look like they're from respected French places. Die Welt, Der Spiegel, and major German ones Bild, Die Welt again.
So they're cloning news sites. Essentially, yeah. Or just the look and feel of their articles. Same thing for Ukrainian agencies like Union, Obozravatel, and even the Israeli site Walla.
Interesting. And Italy.
Italy's a bit different. There, they apparently leveraged an existing pro-Russian blog. Forward Roma didn't even need to fake it.
Okay, let's drill down the specific stories, the narratives in France.
In France, there's a real emphasis on this idea of French decline.
Decline.
Yeah, criticizing Macron heavily, talking about rising public debt. That 3.3 trillion figure gets mentioned a lot.
Okay.
Factory closures, social problems getting worse. Yeah. It's all about painting this picture of a nation really struggling.
And that connects back to Ukraine, how?
Well, the implication is obvious, isn't it? How can France, with all these problems, afford to help a supposedly corrupt, failing Ukraine?
Right.
They also weave in anti-vaccination stuff. Misinformation about public health.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a claim about 15 mandatory vaccines for kids by 2025. And also narratives about France losing influence in Africa. It's quite broad.
Okay. Shifting to Germany. Similar themes or different angles?
Themes change a bit, but the goal division seems the same. Their anti-immigrant sentiment is being amplified.
Especially with elections coming up.
Exactly. And linking it to things like that awful Christmas market attack in Magdeburg in December 2024. The sources point to keywords showing up frequently in these fake articles. Wirtschaft, recession, Arbeitslosigkeit.
German words for economy, recession, unemployment.
Right. All about economic failure. Plus, heavy focus on energy policy, migration, social unrest, poverty, and again, like France, claims of Ukrainian corruption.
Any specific examples jump out?
Yeah, there was one particularly stark example mentioned, portraying food vouchers as the ultimate dream before Christmas, really trying to create a sense of desperation.
Wow. Okay, Italy. You said they used an existing blog, Ferro di Roma. What's the narrative there?
Right, so it's not impersonation, it's using a sympathetic platform. The main story being pushed is that Ukrainian military losses are, massively underestimated.
How are they claiming that?
They make this really dramatic assertion. Over 123,000 new burial sites in just 1 year.
123,000?
How? They even cite Sentinel Hub satellite imagery to make it sound scientific.
But is that verifiable?
Well, that's the crucial point. Interpreting satellite images like that without context is highly speculative. It's unverified. There could be many reasons for changes in burial sites.
And the person behind these claims, Andrea Luzziti, any red flags there?
Quite a few, actually. The sources mention he studied in St. Petersburg, lives there, applied for Russian citizenship.
Okay.
And there's a photo of him at this event in Sochi, NATO, History of Deception, wearing pins like, I love Masu, and one for Soleimani.
Right. That definitely raises questions about potential links to influence operations.
It certainly does.
What about Ukraine itself? What disinformation is targeted there?
There, the focus is on creating a sense of isolation, eroding the idea of international support.
How so?
Pushing the idea allies are losing interest, even taking a Guardian quote out of context to suggest Europe won't support Ukraine to victory anymore.
Wow. And domestically.
Amplifying existing challenges. Energy shortages, corruption, government inefficiency, trying to undermine public trust.
Using real problems but twisting them.
Exactly, like using the former energy minister's forecast of, 2-3 years of blackouts to fuel despair. Keywords like corruption, shortages, deficit, retreat pop up a lot.
Okay, finally, Israel. What's the angle there?
Narrative seems to be that the ongoing conflicts are damaging economic and strategic stability badly.
Focusing on the cost.
Yeah, the financial burden of the missile war, suggesting leadership mismanagement, even using things like the price of Hanukkah donuts, supposedly up 50% to illustrate economic hardship.
Donuts.
Seriously.
Yeah. It seems like they're trying everything. There's also a narrative blaming the Democratic Party's policies for weakening Israel.
So connecting it to U.S. politics.
Right. Keywords like Hanukkah or donuts and Biden administration appear in that context.
Oh, yeah.
It feels very thorough in a negative way.
Beyond the content, you mentioned the writing style gives clues. Yeah, particularly in the fake French and German articles. The language often feels off, like it's translated.
How so in French?
Well, grammatical awkwardness, vocabulary choices that a native speaker probably wouldn't make. There's an example. Mettre de l'ordre dans sa maison.
Which means?
Literally, put order in one's house. It sounds like a direct translation, a calque, probably from a common Russian expression. Not quite natural French.
And German. You said it was more polished.
A bit, yeah, on the surface, but still had its share of clunky phrasing, rough translations, awkward transitions between ideas.
Like?
The example given was about further losses and bankruptcies being repeated almost word for word without much stylistic change. It just lacks that natural flow you'd expect from a professional journalist.
Okay, so the message is there, but the delivery isn't quite right.
Exactly. It feels constructed.
Now, this disinformation, it needs infrastructure to spread, right? It doesn't just appear.
Absolutely not. It relies on a technical setup. The sources shed some light here.
What are the key parts?
One important element is a service called care.io.
Care.io.
Yeah. It's advertised on Russian-speaking underground forums. Basically, it distributes web traffic and redirects users.
Why? What's the point?
It's specifically designed to bypass moderation on social media. Think of it like a filter dodging tool.
Okay. And Doppelgänger uses this.
Doppelgänger uses it, yeah. And other online scam operations, too.
And this care service connects to other entities.
It seems closely connected to a UK company, Partner Hosting Ltd. That's AS-215-826. Directed by a Ukrainian individual.
Okay. Their public website is Altot Hosting.
Correct. And what's interesting is this network, AS-215-826, previously had direct network connections peering with a known Russian bulletproof host.
A bulletproof host. That's one that ignores abuse complaints, right? That's bad stuff happens.
Precisely. A safe haven for malicious actors.
And the connections go deeper.
They do, when you look at the digital records. Alltop Hosting's website shares technical details MX records for email with a domain previously tied to a Ukrainian network run by someone named Daniel Yevchenko. That's AS-203727.
Even though that network isn't active anymore.
Right, and this Yevchenko guy now uses his Telegram account to rent servers for Alltalk.
Huh.
Plus, both Alltalk and Care advertise on the same underground forums, suggests a potential working relationship.
Okay. Then there's another UK company, WI Core.
WII Core Ltd, yeah. ASN AS213887. This one has a director from Belarus.
What's notable there?
They share 100% of their network peering agreements with Partner Hosting Ltd, the Alltalk people.
Okay, so very closely linked networks.
Seems so. And this director previously ran a very similarly named company that got dissolved, likely trying to ditch a bad reputation or avoid blacklisting.
But WAI Core still has significant connections.
Yeah, particularly with Oralogic GmbH. That's a German company known for facilitating bulletproof hosting services.
And WAI Core might be a front.
It appears YI Core's network might be acting as a front for a bulletproof provider called Marshall Servers.
Advertised on the same forums as Alltalk.
The very same.
Yeah.
And even the registration email for WI Core has ties to a campaign involving Redline info stealing malware, linked to something called Flummyochka servers.
Wow. It's layers upon layers.
And we also see actual movement of IP address blocks from WI Core's networks over to Alltalk's. Critically, some of those specific IPs were used in Doppelgänger campaigns.
So direct technical links between the infrastructure and the disinformation.
Exactly. It's like watching the puzzle pieces click together.
Okay, one more piece of infrastructure. Second layer redirectors. What are those?
These are basically intermediary websites. You click the fake news link, maybe you get sent here first, then to the final destination. Another layer of obfuscation.
And where are these hosted?
Many are on infrastructure from Servers Tech FC Coco, that's AS216071 in Dubai, which is used by a Russian hosting company, VD-Sina.
VD-Sina. Have they been linked before?
Oh yes. VD-Sina has a history. Used in past Doppelgänger campaigns for this exact purpose. Also linked to ransomware groups, controversy over hosting the Hamas website.
So, not exactly clean infrastructure.
Far from it.
Okay, so stepping back from the disinformation side.
Yeah.
What's the summary?
What becomes clear is a really sophisticated, coordinated operation. It uses these carefully crafted divisive narratives.
Tailored to each country.
Tailored to specific vulnerabilities, yeah. Amplified through fake news sites, and all supported by this complex technical infrastructure designed to evade detection and take down.
Right. Okay, let's switch gears. The other side of the coin. Malicious cyber activities.
Right. UAC-0007 and UAC-0006.
Both linked to Russia. Both active in early 2025.
That's what the information indicates, yes. Primary targets seem to be Ukraine, but their reach goes beyond that.
And like Doppelgänger, they rely on bulletproof hosting.
Heavily reliant, it seems. That's a major commonality.
Tell us about UAC-0000 first.
Okay, UAC-0050 is described as having potential ties to Russian law enforcement. Motives look like a mixed financial game and espionage.
Espionage, too.
Seems so. They're believed to operate under an umbrella name, Da Vinci Group. We see them using various malware. Slowed, Remco's Net Support Manager.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Slowed. There was a campaign in October 2024.
Yes. Delivered via a compromised Russian webmail account targeting Ukrainian organizations.
And they even spoofed the SSU, the Ukrainian Security Service.
They did. Made emails look like official warnings. The delivery was quite complex. RR files, ZIP files, LNK files.
LNK files downloading scripts.
A VBS script, yeah.
Huh.
And a decoy PDF, all downloaded from specific IPs.
And some of those IPs link to other bad stuff.
Yes, interesting connections. Some link to Cockbot, the banking Trojan, and Ransom Hub ransomware.
And one IP connected back to the hosting we discussed earlier.
Right. One IP belonged to AS215428. That's my Kaida Hotco's network, linked to Alltalk hosting. Another overlap.
Okay. Then Remco's malware in November.
Also from that same compromised Russian IP. This time using Remco's, a remote access Trojan. Wider target list, too.
Not just Ukraine.
Mostly Ukraine, but also victims in France, Germany, Poland, Jordan, Canada.
How was it delivered?
Phishing emails with a PDF attachment looked like a Google Drive link, but it wasn't.
Where did it lead?
To a folder on Bitbucket, the code hosting site, contained a password-protected archive with Remco's inside.
And the control server, where the malware reports back.
The C2 server IP was hosted on AS45839, that's Shinjiru Technology in Malaysia.
Used before.
Used by UAC-0054, yes. And also, by the Doppelgänger group, another connection point.
And this campaign downloaded another piece of malware.
Yeah, something unidentified, possibly nicknamed Lucky Volunteer, communicated with an IP tied to Crazy RDP, another bulletproof host.
Okay. Then December 2024, psychological operations, bomb threats.
A continuation of those, yeah. Sent to Ukrainian entities, especially energy sector, attributed to Fire Cells Group.
Which is linked to UAC-0050, using that same Russian IP.
Believed to be, yes. But there was also a separate bomb threat campaign starting mid-December from a different IP.
Where was that IP?
Belonged to AS-210644, AISA International Ltd., another Russian bulletproof provider routed via Orologic in Germany.
And these threats were elaborate.
Quite elaborate, referencing Ukrainian veterans, specific groups, even using the email address darkfamita@cyberfear.com.
And it wasn't just in Ukrainian.
No, that same IP sent threats in Polish, English, Dutch. One threatening to bomb Macron in Warsaw included images of grenades, pistols.
Wow. So targeting went beyond Ukraine.
Definitely. Even a South Korean energy company involved in a Ukraine project was targeted.
And UAC-0050 also kept sending malware in December.
They did. Still using that original Russian IP, impersonating Nova Pochta, the Ukrainian logistics company.
How did that work?
PDF link to a Dropbox folder, nested archives inside, containing Light Manager, another remote admin tool.
And the C2 server for Light Manager.
Back on that same Malaysian network, AS45839, they seem to favor it.
Okay, moving into 2025. Yeah. January, February. Tactics shifted.
Slightly. Started using Net Support Manager, another remote admin tool. Still often originating from that same Russian IP.
Delivery method.
Similar. Phishing email, PDF attachment, link to a JavaScript file hosted somewhere like ForSync.
And the JavaScript downloads the malware.
Downloads the Net Support Manager archive, yeah, from various IPs. The C2 servers were on different networks, too.
Which ones?
One was on AS216071, Servers Tech FCCO, that Dubai company linked to VD-Sino we mentioned with Doppelgänger.
Another overlap?
Yep. Another C2 was on AS215789, Karina Rashkovska's network in Ukraine.
That name sounds familiar.
It's been linked to Sogolish infrastructure, and again, used by Doppelgänger.
Okay. And who was targeted in these net support campaigns?
Mostly Ukrainian entities, but interestingly also a Russian nuclear energy company.
A Russian target from a Russian-linked group.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? A February campaign used a similar method, C2 on yet another IP. They're persistent and adaptable.
Okay, let's turn to UAC-0006 now. What's their focus?
Primarily financial gain, it seems. They've been targeting Ukrainian organizations since at least 2013.
Using what mainly?
Often using smoke loader malware, typically delivered via phishing emails.
Okay. December 2024 campaign.
Launched a spam campaign targeting Ukrainian entities. Used Ukrainian proxies managed by a tool called SystemBC.
SystemBC? Wasn't that hosted somewhere specific?
Previously hosted on Stark Industries, yeah. They also use infrastructure from PSB Hosting Ltd, AS214927.
A UK network.
UK-based, yeah, and openly advertises itself as bulletproof.
So not hiding it, and the phishing email.
Contain nested RAR archives with VBS scripts inside.
DBS scripts again. Downloading smoke loader.
Downloading smoke loader from various IPs and domains, sometimes redirecting victims to legitimate sites like kernel.ua, the agricultural company, probably as a distraction.
And they continued into January 2025?
Yes. Similar targets, PDF attachments linking to malware, sometimes hosted on compromised Ukrainian energy sector websites.
Energy sector again. That overlap with UAC-0050.
It is interesting, isn't it? Targeting the same critical sector makes you wonder about coordination or shared intelligence.
Now, the most concerning part might be the shared infrastructure, right? Both groups using the same networks.
That's particularly worrying, yes. Both UAC-0050 and UAC-0006 use IPs from Global Connectivity Solutions LLP. That's AS215540, UK-based.
Example.
UAC-0050 used an IP from there for a Remco C2. UAC-0006 used IPs from there for smoke loader C2s.
And this AS215540 network, who does it connect to?
Significant peering with Stark Industries, AS44477, known for being used as a proxy to hide attacks against Russia's adversaries. It's like they're all in the same digital neighborhood.
The ownership of Global Connectivity Solutions is that clear.
It's murky, deliberately so it seems, owned by a Russian individual, uses two Seychelles-based shell companies as members.
And those Seychelles companies.
Both owned by a Latvian individual linked to an agency that supplies shell companies for illicit businesses.
And these same shell companies were used by?
By Ex-Host Internet Solutions LP, AS208891, which was a front for Z servers.
the sanctioned Russian bulletproof host.
The very same. And we're seeing Z-Observer's old IP ranges moving to new networks now, likely to evade those sanctions.
Okay. And Global Connectivity Solutions connects back to an older Russian network.
Traces back to Global Internet Solutions LLC, AS-007713. Directed by the same Russian individual.
What was that network known for?
Legal front for 4VPS.su, a bulletproof service used by UAC-0006 in the past. Now its IPs are moving to AS-21-55540.
Yeah, and this older network, AS-207733, used by state actors.
Frequently used by known Russian state-sponsored groups like Gamma-Radon.
Yeah.
And the owner has links to ransomware operations. It's a deeply interconnected, potentially illicit ecosystem.
Okay. Is there another shared network?
Yes. Both groups also use RailNet LLC virtualing, that's AS514943, for C2's hosting malware.
When did that appear?
Allocated May 2024, it appears with fcloud UG, AS51396. Both are on the Spam House block list.
Advertised where?
On Russian-speaking forums. For illegal activities, this network, AS214943, has a high rate of attacks originating from it.
And Ukraine is a source of compromised machines for them.
Surprisingly, yeah. Ukraine appears as a significant source of activated IPs launching attacks from this network.
Who's the registered agent for RailNet?
A company called White Label Networks, LLC, based in Israel, acts as an agent for other abusive networks on the Spam House block list. It seems designed to be a haven for bad actors.
Okay, so the picture from the malicious cyber activity side, what's the summary?
It's one of significant interconnectedness. These groups heavily rely on bulletproof hosting.
With complex legal structures.
Complex structures across multiple jurisdictions, yeah. Seemingly designed to make tracking and takedown incredibly difficult.
And the targeting is broad.
Very broad. Critical infrastructure, individuals, NGOs, international companies with Ukrainian interests. It's a mix of espionage, financial theft, and destabilization efforts.
So bring it all together then, the key takeaway.
It has to be the undeniable interconnectedness between the disinformation campaigns and these malicious cyber activities.
Suggesting a coordinated effort, likely with Russian ties.
The evidence strongly points that way, yes. Targeting multiple countries, multiple sectors. It's not just random incidents. Feels sustained, multi-pronged.
And they're adaptive.
Extremely adaptive. Infrastructure shifts constantly. New tactics emerge. It's a persistent, evolving threat. Very hard to counter.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? The broader implications for democracy, international relations, just individual security.
Absolutely. What does it mean when public opinion can be manipulated like this? It raises serious questions about the information landscape we live in.
For listeners who want to dig deeper?
The sources have a lot more technical detail. Those ASNs, the IP addresses we mentioned, they're great starting points for your own research. You can look up network ownership, connections.
Okay. Finally, a thought to leave people with.
Just this. In this increasingly complex digital world, how do individuals, organizations build effective defenses against threats that are this multifaceted, this persistent, this relentless?
A tough question. And one I think we all need to grapple with. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.